is the way people see us, the way we truly are. I have to say, I've never really liked mirrors. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not opposed to them, and I certainly do use them, given that they are literally everywhere, and almost quite a necessity. But they never do me, or anyone else for that matter, justice, you know? Either they make me look too short or too tall, thin or fatter than I actually am, they water down the colors, or they bring out every single missing hair, black spot, scar, you name it. They just don't work the way they are supposed to. And for me personally, this goes way back, ever since I was around 5 and my mom read me The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. Now, I would ask you if you remember the story, but since I can't physically see you and I can't physically be there with you, it would be a little bit too complicated. So instead, I am going to remind you the story real quick. All right, so The Snow Queen. The story with the hobgoblin that has created a mirror which magnifies ugly and evil things and shrinks good and pretty things, with this mirror falling from the sky and smashing into pieces, some of which getting into people's eyes and distorting their view of the world, some of which becoming windows, some of which even making it into people's hearts and turning them as cold as ice. But mostly, many of these pieces were left scattered about the world. Until one day, when a little boy named Kay met the Snow Queen, who made a piece of the hobgoblin's magic mirror get caught in his eye and reach his heart, turning it to ice, making him behave in awful ways, making him be rude and mean and heartless, most notably towards his best friend Gerda. Gerda then goes in search of Kay, who had been taken by the Snow Queen, and she faces an assortment of positively terrible threats until finally she finds him. Of course, this being a kid's story, it does have a happy ending, but you have to admit, for a 5-year-old, this doesn't only look scary in your mind, but the plot of the story, man, talk about making kids stay away from sharp objects. Yikes. All jokes aside though, there is a lot more substance to this fairy tale than most of us could give it credit. For instance, how many times have you heard someone say this to you or to anyone else? Oh, I totally expect him to win the game. His brother was the best player in the history of the team, so he must be at least as good as him. Or even better. Yes, of course she got an A+ on the test. She always does. She's at the top of her class. She's smart. And while, yes, these types of remarks are commonly known as expectations, and they basically are defined as hard to swallow sometimes, quite damaging, but overall not as harmful as other things or situations can be, they are, more often than not, as harmful, they're as harmful, if not more harmful, and something much more important, something which can, and usually does, have negative and long-lasting repercussions. And I'll tell you why. These remarks, these expectations, they are based on assumptions, which basically, again, means ideas and hypotheses about one specific person, based solely on what the other person has seen of them. It's very similar to a medical full body examination, except it doesn't do any good whatsoever. Right? You assume someone is going to win the contest. You assume your brother's ex-girlfriend is going to fail the exam because you have witnessed them do all these things before and have taken them as a given, which they aren't and they never will be. So we have established that these assumptions are false 9 times out of 10 because there are always details left out. Pieces of private information which, had the world had access to them, they would have made a tremendous difference, and so on and so forth. All right? Are we all on the same page? Good. Now, if that's the case, if we know those assumptions are not true, the normal, logical follow-up question would be, then why, and most importantly, how are people still affected by them? You know, the answer is, ironically, pretty simple. We are still affected by these expectations or assumptions, however you want to call them, because one way or another, unwillingly, and I can't stress this enough, unwillingly, other people's expectations about us end up becoming our own. Sounds a tad bit weird, doesn't it? Don't worry though, I've got you covered. But if I am to further explain this to you, we need to backtrack a little bit. We need to go back to the beginning of this speech, where we were talking about mirrors. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the saying, the eyes are the mirror of the soul. But have you ever heard the whole quote? Because I know I hadn't before looking into it. It is a quote by Paulo Coelho, which says, "The eyes are the mirror of the soul and reflect everything that seems to be hidden. And like a mirror, they also reflect the person looking into them." And you know, there is a certain power we all hold inside our very souls, behind our eyes. But likewise, there is a lot of damage we can do with that power. Because mirrors not only show, but if anything, they reflect. That's actually what they do most. They reflect. And here is where the point I made earlier comes into play. If you have ever wondered why and how people have somehow met your expectation of them, this is the reason why. The more people make known and project on us their expectations, the more we start to internalize them, take them in and shift our memories in order to make ourselves believe that that thing is what we have wanted all along. Unwillingly, we breathe in other people's way of seeing us. And this is damaging and dangerous for the simple fact that the more we keep internalizing feelings, ideas, mannerisms which aren't our own, the more we lose ourselves. Those false images of us, they eat us alive, they magnify a fake version of ourselves. When just looking in other people's eyes without actually seeing them, we are merely looking into smaller circular mirrors, just like the ones in the Snow Queen. Let's look at it this way. The way we are is more of a verb, let's call it, than a noun. We are, even if only the tiniest bit different in every moment, every second, every millisecond. In contrast, when we look into a mirror, a key element of that verb is lost within seconds. Try smiling, a genuine smile, in front of a mirror, and you realize it just isn't the same. Or think of it this way. When we see the person in the mirror, it is the only person with a logical right side and a feeling left side. Generalizing about brain hemispheres is easily criticized, I know, but switching left and right does fundamentally make you a different being in the mirror. And from experience, this being is much less animated, much less expressive, much less natural. And I have felt this. You know, you're talking with someone who got straight A's all throughout middle school and at both exams. You're talking with someone who, in the past 4 years, has lived with a nagging feeling that I had to, well, be the best. Because who am I if I am not the best, right? Obviously wrong. So that's why I'm asking you, and I'm asking me, and I'm asking all of us, where do we stop? Where do we draw the line? When do we finally say, no, this is you, this is your opinion of me, and this is me, and we shall keep it this way? I'm telling you this line that we need to find and we need to draw, it doesn't and it won't come from the outside world. It comes from within. And the word for mirror doesn't even mean to reflect. It actually comes from the Latin word mirare, which means to look at. So honestly, if you want to be able to stop seeing yourself reflected in other people's eyes, in their so-called mirrors, then you have to learn to look inside your own self. And I know it's in our blood, it's our instinct to search for confirmation or for solutions outwards instead of inwards. Because ever since we were kids, when bad things would happen, we would immediately tell our parents that we didn't do it. We would blame someone or something else, never ourselves. Or nowadays even, when we get angry, we always say that we're mad at someone, instead of acknowledging the fact that in reality, we are mad at the situation. But we never take the time to look inside ourselves. Maybe we're afraid to be vulnerable. Or maybe it just hasn't crossed our minds until now that doing this is, as dramatic as it sounds, probably our salvation. So this time, I'm asking you, is the person you are right now a mirrored version of yourself? And if so, what will you do about it? Thank you.